Novel Navigator. Chapter 221, Weakest Faction. With wind blowing against his black hair, Adam jogged down a sidewalk that was blocked with railings from both sides of the sidewalk. The street lamps brightened his surroundings with their golden glow of light. The sidewalk was still slightly damp as it just finished raining, and the air was filled with the fresh scent of wet pavement. With his powerful running steps, he quickly made his way down the long sidewalks that went through some empty streets, through a narrow alleyway, and then through the gates of a nearby park. The park was vast and filled with vibrant greenery. It had some small forests, nice ponds, and tiled roads that wound through the lush landscape. Since it was nighttime, the park was eerily quiet and peaceful, with only the sound of birds chirping in the distance. The winding tiled road path led to a beautiful clearing where a small fountain stood in the moonlight. When he finally arrived there, Adam came to a slow stop and tried to catch his breath before taking in the serene beauty of the scene before him. At that moment, he also heard some running steps, and when he turned around, he saw an ordinary couple jog alongside the pond. Adam sat down on the edge of the fountain and watched as they passed by before returning back to his thoughts. However, before he could finish a single thought of his, two people sat left and right of him on the fountain. With a side glance, he saw that they were monstrously big, standing near 3 meters tall, and looked like they were as thick as a mountain. "We are on behalf of..." Before they could say who, Adam said, "Bartholomew Ravenscroft." A flash of surprise went through the two men's eyes. That's exactly who was their boss, but they couldn't understand how this young man knew this unless he already knew that they were in Navy Town and that he had kept an eye on them. "Then you must know why we are here," Klaus said. "While Big Boss couldn't meet you in the New World, he sent us here to talk with you." "Answer is no," Adam said. "You didn't allow us to tell you his offer," Johannes said. "Sorry, but I have grown a little bit of an ego," Adam said and cracked his knuckles. "I don't care what his henchman has to say. I want to hear his offer from his own tongue." "That isn't possible," Klaus said. "Big Boss is a busy man. I am not important enough for him to take a 2-hour plane trip." Adam asked. "He doesn't live that far from me, now does he?" Klaus and Johannes exchanged a glance. With a nod, both of them stood up, and stayed standing there like two bodyguards. At that moment, another person walked from him, cleaned the spot beside Adam, and then sat down. This man was also incredibly tall like a giant, with meticulously groomed brown hair and a stern expression on his face. "You indeed are important enough for me to take this trip," Bartholomew said. "It costs me money for me to move away from VR Pod, as every second I am logged out, I lose money." "How long you'd been here?" Adam asked. "I landed this morning," Bartholomew said. "I've been waiting to meet you face to face. You're making me feel bad, after all, I planned on refusing your offer," Adam said with honesty. He was being shockingly honest, which took Klaus and Johannes off guard. "You don't know my offer yet," Bartholomew said with furrowed brows. "I know what it is about and I am not interested," Adam said. "Don't get me wrong, I do respect you. Guildmaster of Smilebacks, a plague of chaos beings, Bartholomew Ravenscroft. Yet, you don't want to join hands." Bartholomew looked at him with a frown. "You don't want to, or Crimson Hounds had already chosen their alliance. I have a feeling that Digby is waiting for me to make my decision. It doesn't seem like he is willing to do that by himself." "Then you don't want to?" "Yeah, I don't," Adam said. "May I ask why?" "I think you're going to lose the war," Adam said. "And I don't want to be on the losing side." "Ha ha ha ha." Bartholomew erupted in laughter and patted him strongly on the back. "Your honesty is very refreshing. No one else has dared to say that straight to my face." Adam Rye smiled and shook his head. "And you're completely correct," Bartholomew said. "My faction is weakest in the entire war. It's because our numbers are weak for all-out war. Why don't you drop down from the war? Adam asked. That isn't a choice, you should know that, as you seem like an intelligent fellow yourself. Yet, when the war is over and other sides are weakened, you could sweep in and take the victory for yourself. They wouldn't allow you to do that. The war's participants have already been chosen. Bartholomew said. The 7 ancient guilds and their alliances. Then, standing alone, Imperial Order. It'll be a bloody war. Adam said. Titans will fall, rulers will die, and kingdoms will crumble. Nov. L. B/JNN. It is what it is. Greed is in a human's blood. Bartholomew stood up, then, from his hunched back position, slowly straightened his back. It's exciting though. My battle axe is sharp and ready. It feels like the timeline has shifted drastically. Adam thought. It feels like the war will start earlier than before, as Bartholomew himself came to me. It sounds like he is in a hurry. Either way, see you at the war, perhaps we'll get to clash weapons. Bartholomew said and then started to walk away. Why didn't you want me as S-ranker? Adam asked. Honest question. Because you're a balance breaker, Bartholomew said. I've been preparing for this war for 3 years now. I know every guild's weaknesses and strengths, but then you came wild card. Adam frowned. You're the only wild card in this entire war. Bartholomew said. While I personally don't think you can influence this upcoming war too much, it's still something to worry about. Strange feeling. Adam thought to himself. In the Great Guild War, I was nothing but a foot soldier that, in the end, didn't make any difference at all, but now, I am the wild card. With the tip of his hat, Bartholomew then left with his 2 strong-bodied bodyguards. Adam slipped his hands inside his pocket and also left, headed back to his home. With the hour growing late, Adam walked down the sidewalk of his neighborhood, about to arrive at his front door. However, at that moment, he saw a person standing by the front gate, inches away from touching the front lawn. Who are you? Adam asked with a deep frown. And what are you doing in front of my house? How did the talk with Bartholomew go? The man turned to him. Adam. With his wild, curly black hair and silver earrings, he looked like a troublemaker, but his calm demeanor and kind eyes told a different story. You are. Adam frowned. It was someone he didn't have the greatest memory of but knew about his position among the mercenaries in the New World. He was the guild master of Destruction, one of the 7 ancient guilds, Zephyr. My name's Zephyr. Zephyr smiled warmly. I'd like to have a word with you. Chapter 222, Sit on the Throne. By a hill area, the left side having a steep uphill climb while the right side descended into a valley, the 2 men walked down that road that led to the hillside neighborhood. Adam slowly walked behind Zephyr, a person he didn't expect to meet. Today was a strange day. Meeting 2 members of the Council of Mercenaries in the real world nonetheless was an unexpected surprise. He didn't ask where he was being taken, but he had a feeling it was somewhere important. After a long walk later, they arrived by gated community. It looked abandoned, the weed-covered driveway going through the middle of the overgrown houses. It seemed like it was a nice place, like 20 years ago. This is the place where the first outbreak of Dark Plague happened in the Navy town. Zephyr said, opened the rusty gates, and entered the neighborhood. Adam thought about asking how he knew about that, but decided against it and instead just followed after him. They went past most of the houses. Zephyr's steps seemed quick as if he knew exactly where he was heading. It didn't take them long to arrive at the abandoned house at the end of the street. It looked nice, like a house straight from a coloring book, but that would have been 20 years ago, now it was dilapidated and sad-looking. However, by the front gate, there was a rusty sign, half of the words erased, but it was easy enough to see what it was saying. Home of Palestars. Zephyr read it aloud. That's where your parents lived before the Dark Plague, you know. How do you know all that? Adam asked. It wasn't just your mother and father that lived. They lived alongside your father's parents, who also perished in the Dark Plague. Adam stayed silent. He also knew that his grandparents died in the Dark Plague, which made the memory 2 times as painful. However, there was one more person living there. Zephyr said. Your father's brother, your uncle. That's... Adam looked at him with a shake in his eyes. What's your name? Zephyr Palestar. Zephyr said with a chuckle. I haven't used that name in a long time. You're my uncle. Adam frowned. Where the fuck have you been for the last 20 years? Zephyr sadly smiled. Around a year, or was it 2 years before all that Dark Plague shit, I left. There was an argument, I was young and stupid. I removed myself from this family. Traveling across the world, I had no other meaning, and so when I vanished traveling the entire world, I found out about Mortal Online, where I had now spent another decade. I just spent time traveling around Mortal Online. I'd seen places I'd never imagined and met people I'd never forget, but ultimately, it was all just a distraction from the pain of leaving my family behind. I never knew about you nor that my brother and she died. I only found out that in the tutorial of yours, you looked just like your father with your mother's eyes, and that's when I thought about contacting my brother again. I tried, and after digging up, I found out he has been dead for 20 years. Holy! Adam sat on the fence and buried his face in his hands. I spent my entire last life without finding that out. Zephyr looked at an old kid's bicycle on the overgrown lawn and remembered when he paddled it down the street as a child while his brother pushed it from behind. Why did it take you another year to contact me? Adam asked. I had to gather my courage to do that first, and because I am a coward. Zephyr sighed. This place was not kind for me. I had a lot of bad memories here. What now? Adam asked. I doubt you'll be staying here. I am sure you have a life somewhere. I would ask you to come with me, but I know you will refuse me. Zephyr said. I don't want you to abandon your life here. There's another reason why you came to me today, isn't it? Adam looked at him with a knowing look. The war. You're smart, unlike your father. Zephyr tried to say a joke, but when he remembered his brother, his mood turned sour. Also, yes. You want me to join your faction? Adam scratched the back of his head. Is that the main reason for your visit? I have never used the Palestar name in Mortal Online before. Zephyr said. With you on my side, I'd like to change that n/o/vel/b/jn.c//om. Adam just let out a deep sigh. It was a troubling matter. On the other hand, he knew what happened to Zestruction in the future, and he doubted he could change the outcome as the war was fought between giants and titans of the mercenary world. I couldn't care less about the war before. Zephyr said. I thought it was finally time to retire as I finished traveling around the entire new world like a year ago. I still have some floors undiscovered in the dungeon, but I have a feeling they won't be cleared in my lifetime. I thought the war would be my last hurrah. I don't think my faction will win it. I doubt we will survive through it. I have now changed my mind. I want our family to sit at the throne. I finally have a purpose. In this life. Well, what's your answer, nephew? He asked and offered his hand. Join my side so that our family name doesn't stay in shadows. Palestars are destined for much more. Adam opened his mouth, the words leaving his lips as he answered. At the dawn of the morning, around 4 in the morning, a door of the bedroom opened, and Adam, tired like a log, stumbled over to the bed to catch a wink of sleep. It had been a very exhausting day. With the fight with Victor, long traveling between Ebonreach and the Wasteland, then meeting with Bartholomew and ending with a discussion with Zephyr. However, when he came by the bed, he noticed that there was a lump under the covers, and when he moved away the covers, he saw that Alice was sleeping on his bed, looking as beautiful and adorable as ever. Adam lay beside her and looked at her sleeping face, the soft breath leaving her lips every now and then. When he was about to sleep as well, she muttered something before her eyes slightly fluttered. Open. However, her eyelids barely opened, looking like a slit. You're back. She muttered. I was waiting for you, but you didn't come, so I fell asleep. Why did you wait for me? Adam asked. I was worried. Alice whispered sleepily. Also, what I said earlier. It's nothing. Adam lay on his back, gazing up at the ceiling. You're interested in her. I've seen your look. Alice said. You like her. I've nothing to do with her. Adam put his arms under his head. I used to. We used to be very close. But not anymore. You want to, though? Alice said and traced her finger across his chest. I always wondered what you were doing in there. You spend weeks, sometimes months at the time there, and I always thought that you must have someone else there. How does that make you feel? Adam looked at her with a soft look. I don't know. Alice said. With the sun rising over the horizon, the Navy town started waking up. The same thing happened in the kind fourth residence as Sarah and John woke up to start their day. They started making breakfast, some bacon sizzling on the pan, while they started to prepare for the long day ahead as both had work. In one of the bedrooms, Adam stared at the ceiling with Alice nudged up against him, still sleeping peacefully. However, Adam couldn't get a single wink of sleep. There was just too much to think about. MMH. With a soft moan, Alice also woke up and turned to face Adam, her eyes heavy with sleep. Good morning. Adam said and planted a soft kiss on her forehead. Did you sleep? Alice asked sleepily. No, Adam replied. I was too busy thinking about everything that happened yesterday. Oh. Alice rubbed her eyes and let out a soft yawn. She felt bad, as she thought it was because of what she said, but she didn't know that Adam had quite an eventful day yesterday. What are you planning to do today? I've got some things to do at Mortal Online. Adam said. I will be very busy. Oh. Alice whispered with her lips curling down. When will I see you again? I'll make some time every day, I promise. Adam messed with her hair and then said. Your parents seem to be awake. You should get going before Sarah finds you here. Alice's eyes popped open, and she realized that she wasn't in her room. She then quickly hopped back on her feet, pulled up her oversized shirt because it was sliding off her shoulder, then planted a quick kiss on Adam's lips before rushing out of the room. Adam stretched his arms, and during the night, he had time to think about a lot of things. However, for now, the biggest issue was the war. It was going to happen soon. I'll need to go talk to Digby and others. While dressed in his deceased paladin armor with his long sword on his back, Adam stood at the meeting room alone. With apathetic expression, he moved the places of the quills and paper to the side of the table. Then, he also made sure that they were straightened out before sitting down to wait for everyone to arrive. He told everyone to gather in the meeting hall before 9 in the morning, but since he was quite nervous, he came quite early and had been there waiting, trying to keep his hands busy. After a short while later, the double doors finally opened and the core members of the Crimson Hounds swarmed in. They gave a courtesy bow in Adam's direction before taking their seats around the table. This meeting room was the largest room in the whole building. Bigger than the lounge. It only had around 4 square-shaped windows, the large circular meeting table with 12 seats, and a chandelier above the table. Since he arranged this meeting, Adam was allowed to sit at the head of the table. N/O/vel/B/JN.C//OM. It was pretty unheard of a rookie mercenary sitting at the head of the table during any guild meetings, but no one here complained. They heard about Adam's current strength. He had become shockingly strong in just a year. In another year, maybe it wouldn't take even that long, he would have already surpassed most of the people that were sitting around this table. The last people arrived by the meeting hall. They were Digby and Valera. They took their seats across from Adam. The double doors closed behind them. "Thank you all for coming," Adam said, and bowed in respect. "Is this about what happened yesterday?" Moriel asked with his rough voice. "Those wild Sun's trash infiltrated this place but died like the rats they are. We were informed about it," Digby said. "It was something every guild needed to know because there is now a threat of wildlifers digging their way here." All the eyes stared at Adam. "It looks like you all already know." Adam nodded. "I was the one who discovered them." Everyone nodded, some having smiles on their faces. It made them happy that it was someone from their guild that foiled their plans. It was revenge for Zan's death. Adam then recalled the events of yesterday about what happened with the Wild Suns. When he told about killing Victor, many looked surprised before grinning through their white teeth. Digby nodded sternly and said, "Good job. It sounds like Victor was indeed the leader of the Wild Suns, but he wasn't the strongest member. Those that are backing him might try to get revenge. Any idea why they came here?" Lucette asked. "No," Adam said. "They came here for us, apparently," Digby said. "That family that survived said that Victor was asking directions to here. It seems like they were searching for something. Any idea what that could be?" Adam asked. "No." Digby shook his head. "There's nothing that is really valuable with us. Their reasoning stays a mystery." "Why did you gather us here, Adam?" Valera asked. "Was it for this?" "No." Adam shook his head. "Guildmaster, have you already decided the faction that you will back up?" A silence fell over the room. "No," Digby said. "While my father is part of the royal palace, he isn't associated with the imperial order. However, that could be a strong faction to support. We were actually waiting for your input," Valera said as she stared at Adam. "The whole new world is waiting for your decision, and honestly, we don't want to make that decision for you. Children of the Fair is also a very attractive faction. They're a strong faction that could win the war between the 7 ancient guilds, and after that, their strength could have risen high enough to challenge imperial order." One of the people around the table suggested. "Nightshade as well," another one said. "Ambrose Hawthorne has the pro-strong faction in his pocket already, and that makes their core strength one of the highest. Death mercenaries are also backing them, and they have 2 S-rankers, Mauricio and Calamity." "What about the Smilebacks?" someone said. "Bartholomew as leader is someone you want to follow. He is the greatest tactician of the New World, and while their numbers aren't as high as other factions, they make up for it with unparalleled strategy and cunning. Battle Maidens is good as well," Lucette said with a smile. "Athena is a true battleborn, and her army of fair maidens is a force to be reckoned with on the battlefield. Their faction with the greatest weapon arsenal." "What about Dying Star Guild?" Moriel said. "They already have Saphira and Arxum, 2 S-rankers, and if we add Adam there, 3 S-rankers in one faction is an extremely formidable force. Dark Star Guild is a very attractive choice," another one said. "If they lose the war, their faction might still survive because of the close connection with the Imperial Order. If they win, they might not go for the throne and ally with themselves with King Moriarty, making the strongest alliance in history. What do you think, Adam?" Digby asked. Adam took a deep breath and said, "What about Zestruction?" Adam asked. Zestruction is an only male guild and has the strongest magicians in their ranks, but they're not very versatile in battle," Digby said. "Zephyr, the Traveler, is also not that well known as a leader, so it will be a gamble." Since all of you will hear about this later, Zephyr is my uncle. Adam said with a heavy look. I just found out about that recently. Your uncle is part of the Council of Mercenaries. A shocked expression crossed everyone's expression. That changes things, Digby said. When others find out, they believe that you're already sided with Zestruction, and if you join another faction and cross them on the battlefield, they might think that you don't have what it takes to fight at full strength. That's also good, no? Lucette said. If Zestruction wins the war and Zephyrs takes the throne, we can make Adam his heir. Zephyr is also old, 48 years old. There aren't many years left for him to rule. Crimson Hounds would then become royal guild like the Imperial Order is right now. One of them said with a greedy expression. This plan could lead them straight to the throne. Digby looked at Adam and asked. You want to ally ourselves with them? Adam took a deep breath and nodded. I do. Digby nodded sternly. Once we've sent our letter to them, the other guilds will find out, as Zephyr will use your name to gather more support from guilds that haven't chosen their side yet. When that happens, the ball will start rolling, and we get one step closer to the war. The war is already here, Adam said and looked out of the air. I can feel it in the air. The tension is clear. You can see in the faces of everyone on the street that look of anticipation. When the war starts, the blood river will flow from Imperium City to Ebon Reach's gates. The originals can't hide from the war either. They will also be forced to choose a side. Digby picked up his quill and parchment paper and then started writing a letter for Zephyr. This letter inched the world closer to the war. Chapter 224 First Bullet. A half-open letter lay on the desk. It was read just recently, and the words were still fresh. Near a slightly open window, Zephyr gazed out to the streets of the Imperium City. He heard the usual chatter of tradesfolk, the clattering of carriages nearby, and the familiar church bell ringing in the distance. It was all peaceful. However, Zephyr knew that all that peace and quiet would end shortly. He straightened his sleeves, buttoned his coat, and then left his office. With a small railing in front of him, he leaned against it and looked below. He could see his guild coming to life as the members arrived for their weekly meeting. Everyone! With a loud scream, the guild building turned silent like a grave, and all eyes turned on him. Prepare for the war, Zephyr said coldly. Red Thread, the old antique shop. Palestar read through some of the latest news he had received. With moments flying by, he started to look older and tired. Uncle and nephew. He sighed and looked at the very old chandelier that hanged by the ceiling. It seemed worn and about to break down, just like himself. However, there was one final mission ahead, and he hoped that he would last enough to see it through. From one of the drawers, Palestar brought out an old revolver and spun its chamber like a wheel. At that moment, a pair of shadows moved behind the foggy windows, and then, the door opened with a cling of a bell. With a quick throw, a flashbang grenade rolled inside. Palestar hid behind the counter with the revolver in hand. The flashback grenade exploded behind the counter, blinding the antique shop. It's a wartime, bitch, die. Tyson stormed the antique shop with a Tommy gun and riddled the walls with bullet holes. Rat-a-tat-a-tat-a-ta. Through the valuable antique items, through the walls, and through the windows, the bullets made everything look like Swiss cheese. Ha 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 ha. Tyson laughed maniacally, but then the gun needed a reload. Behind the counter, Palestar stood up, unscathed, pointed his revolver at Tyson, and fired a single bullet. The bullet went through Tyson's forehead. Tyson's friend jumped through the door, and before he could shoot his own Tommy gun, Palestar pointed his revolver at him and fired the second bullet. Swoosh! Through the eye, he also died. Cough, cough. Palestar coughed wildly and dropped down on his chair with drool dripping from the corner of his mouth. The war didn't only revolve around the mortal online. The real world was as dangerous a place now for those participating in the war. The first bullet has been fired. Palestar cleared his throat. No going back now. Under the scorching sun, Orion sat on a rock bench, a walking cane in hand, and looked as two of his beloved pupils fought by the yard. Sapphira's and Arxam's attacks were fierce. It didn't look like an ordinary spar, but a fight to the death. Sapphira danced beautifully, her light sword moving like a lightning bolt from the sky, fast and deadly. With his heavy axe, Arxam struggled to keep up with her speed and agility, but with one overhand slash, he managed to land a solid blow on her shoulder. Spurt! The cut was clean, and Sapphira's arm flew off her shoulder, landing on the ground with a sickening thud. Orion chuckled like a child, but then a member of his guild came to him, whispered something, and then left. It wasn't good news. Far from it. However, Orion didn't look worried and just let the two younglings fight without telling them that the war had basically already started. n/o/vel/b//in.c//om. No need to hurry. The war isn't going anywhere. Woohoo, war! Calamity danced on top of a table that was packed with alcohol bottles. The bar was loud like a concert as the members of the Death Mercenaries partied after the news of the war reached the ears of their guild master. While the official announcement of war hadn't come yet, they knew that the war was already at their doorsteps. It was only a matter of time before they would be called into battle. After today, who knew how long it would take before they could party like this again? It could be years. The war, haha. A drunken mercenary laughed. Calamity, perhaps you can become the latest S-ranker after all, once that Palestar brat is dead, ha ha ha. Calamity grabbed an alcohol bottle and smashed it against the mercenary's face. Its sharp glass cut through his face like a knife and left him badly disfigured. Maruhan! Calamity shouted and took a big gulp of alcohol. I am the latest one. He hadn't proved himself yet, and I don't care what those old geezers say. He is S-ranker in name only, unless he proves himself in the war, he's nothing. Arg, fuck! The disfigured mercenary screamed. You hurt me, bastard! Calamity scoffed and threw his alcohol bottle at him. The bottle exploded against his face, causing blood to spurt out everywhere. How exhilarating! Calamity screamed. In this war, everyone will die and perish. A brilliant throne, embedded with the brightest jewels, stood at the royal hall of the royal palace. At the throne, seated with one leg crossed over the other, King Moriarty read through a letter that the messenger just brought. With his golden eyes moving through the text, he looked apathetic, and after reading it through, he gave it back to the messenger. My liege, what shall we do? His left-sided royal advisor spoke to him. With nearby villages and Godswood in your control, they're tempting places for ancient guilds to target to get a strong foothold. Then, his right-sided royal advisor, who shared the same face as the left-sided royal advisor, said. You must act swiftly to protect your lands and people. King Moriarty raised his hand to silence them. They don't matter. My liege. The royal advisors exchanged a concerned gaze. It is the throne that truly matters. Those villages that I am in control of have only a population of 500 each. Godswood is housed by chaos beings. I won't exchange my men or resources for such insignificant things. My liege, you're still ruler of this realm. If you don't protect your territory, your alliances will fall apart. Evacuate the villages, and burn the Godswood to the ground. King Moriarty said. With Godswood gone, the trees that give that place natural defenses will be gone, making that place worthless. Madame Arya Darkstar sent a letter. The left-sided royal advisor said. She has her concerns. She has my support. He said. Those originals from the evacuated villages will be relocated to her lands to act as reinforcement for her army. It'll make them dissatisfied. Arya will send them to be meat shields. At least they will have their uses, he said. Their dissatisfaction also doesn't matter when they're dead. What will Imperial Order do during this time? We aren't the main party of the war. King Moriarty said. Leave the fighting for ancient guilds first. We're the last boss, after all. Wheeling down a bumpy dirt road, a wagon loaded with supplies jostled and bounced, the driver struggling to maintain control as they headed towards the towering city of Imperium. After opening the flap of the wagon, Adam peered outside, inhaling the fresh scent of pine trees and feeling the cool breeze on his face. It was only him inside the wagon beside some cabbage boxes, food delicacies, and a few boxes of water. The Imperium city loomed closer and closer with each bounce. Chapter 225, Ceremony. In an alleyway that was safely tucked away behind some tall buildings, Adam was sitting on top of a wooden box, the hood pulled up over his head, his legs crossed, and his fingers tapping impatiently on the knee. It didn't take long for him to hear some footsteps come by the corner, and from there, Argus from the Mercenary Guild appeared in the desolate alleyway. "Hello, young man," Argus said with a slight smile. "Here's your card." He handed Adam a mercenary card. It was Adam's card originally, but he gave it to him to put a slight change on it. Now, instead of having Order Giver rank on it, it had Grandeur instead. He was now an official Grandeur-ranked mercenary. This transaction happened in the shadows, as Adam didn't want some of the big names to know that he was here currently. After showing some of his prowess to Argus, he was convinced enough to give him the rank of Grandeur. If he wanted to, he could have tried for Arch-Warrior as well, but Adam thought that Grandeur was enough for now. "You never told me why you came all the way here for just a promotion. This city is not safe for you anymore," Argus said. "We all know that war is coming. Since I was planning on coming for different business, I thought that might as well get a promotion while I am here," Adam said and stored his mercenary card back in his inventory where it would be safe. "You must be here for something important, then." Argus raised his arms. "I won't ask why. I don't want to know. I appreciate the favor," Adam said, stood up from the box, and headed to the exit of the alley. Argus lit up a cigar and took a puff of the smoke before turning to walk in the opposite direction. "What he just showed me. His strength could very well reach Arch-Warrior's level. He is just level 12 as well. When he reaches level 25, the level of Royal Mercenary, his leveling turns into percentages, and the system will determine his current level of strength. He might jump straight to Prime Mercenary. What a ridiculous young man." In the cathedral, a blind-eyed bishop cleaned the altar. It looked like he was able to move pretty well for someone who was blind. At that moment, the double doors of the cathedral opened, and someone entered. "Who goes there?" the bishop called out. "Apologizes, but we're not having any visitors at this hour." It was almost evening, and the young monks of the nearby monastery would soon come to have their evening prayer. For this, outsiders weren't prohibited. Adam took a seat in the front row of the chapel and said, "I am here to meet someone." "You can meet that someone tomorrow," the blind-eyed bishop said. "Until then, please be on your way." Adam crossed his legs and looked like he was waiting for someone. The bishop started to look annoyed, but then one of the doors behind him creaked open and a figure stepped out. It was an extremely tall man. "Bishop, he is with me," Connery said. "Is he now?" the bishop responded. "Lady Yu's visitor." Adam stood up, picked up a single shine coin from his pocket, and tossed it to the collection basket. It landed with a soft clink, joining the other coins inside. After that, he followed Connery through the door that led to a spiraling staircase that led to the attic of the cathedral. Neither of them spoke a word until they arrived at the bottom of the stairs. There was one wooden door, and it had wings like an angel carved into it. "Why you've come here?" Connery stopped Adam for a moment. "You didn't look surprised when I appeared, so you found out who told me to spy on you." I did," Adam said. "No worries, that's have nothing to do with why I am here." "Nov, L, B/JNN. Why are you here? Connery asked. Some peace and quiet. Adam said. I'll try to increase my strength as much as I can before the war is officially declared. I'll need to increase my chances of survival, and that's why I need her assistance. All right. Connery touched him on the shoulder and said sharply. Be kind to her. She is a crybaby. Yes, I know. Adam thought inside his mind and then stepped through the door. Connery closed the door behind him. The attic looked like a beautifully decorated room, with sunlight streaming in through the small window and casting a warm glow over the antique furniture. It was the perfect room for someone who liked some quiet and peace. By the small window, one could just stand there and see the entirety of the Imperium city move with life in the bustling streets below. There was already someone standing by the window. She had her back facing Adam, dressed in a white silk dress with delicate lace details cascading down her back. Her long, silvery hair flowed down her back like a shimmering waterfall, and when she turned around, her piercing gold eyes locked onto his. She already looked beautiful, but the small blush on her cheeks made her look even more radiant and stunning. Mr. Adam, what a pleasant surprise! Lady Yu said with a smile, her voice smooth and melodic. She had her hands intertwined, but it looked like she was fidgeting somewhat as if she were nervous. Lady Yu. Adam lowered his head in a respectful nod. This is our second meeting, is it not? She said. However, after remembering their first meeting, her blush grew. She wondered whether he was still remembering that rather embarrassing meeting in the gathering's hot spring. It is. Adam tried to remember. The years and all the meetings had become quite muddy in his mind. While he'd actually met her many times, this was just the second meeting in this timeline. If I may ask, what's your reasoning for this visit? Lady Yu asked with a smile. Don't get me wrong, I am really happy about finally properly meeting you, but it is quite poor timing, don't you think so? The war frightened her. It was a very scary thing to witness as original. It was because her kind would be thrown to the front lines to just die and slow down the advancement of the enemy's forces. It made her really sad and angry. I need your help, Adam said. Help? Lady Yu asked. I am not quite sure what I can help you with. The Holy Room, Adam said. I'll need Holy Maiden's help. Lady Yu's eyes popped wide open. This wasn't a small request. The Holy Room ceremony was intimate and sacred, not to be taken lightly. A warrior and Holy Maiden, once they enter the Holy Room together, their destinies would be forever intertwined. The ceremony's purpose was to increase the strength of the warrior. However, since it was an intimate ceremony, their souls would get connected, and when one of them died, the other would as well. It was a ceremony that had only been once in the last century. They were complete strangers, and to ask something like this was ludicrous. Adam looked deeply at Lady Yu, knowing the ridiculous request. However, it wasn't as ridiculous as it seemed. It was because in his last life, Adam was supposed to do the ceremony with her, but before he could, he was assassinated and killed. If he was assassinated a month or two later, Lady Yu's soul would have died alongside him. That's the only positive thing about his death, that it happened earlier than the ceremony. Chapter 226, The Stage of War. That's a serious matter. Lady Yu turned to gaze out of the window. You would gain strength to fight in the war. However, if you perish, so shall I. Something for you to think about. Adam said. I'll be in the city for a couple of days. I'll visit you before I leave, and you can give me your answer then. Why? Adam heard a sound of her whisper. Why do you believe I would even entertain that? Lady Yu looked over to him with her sweet gaze. We don't know each other. Those who usually do the ceremony have been very close for decades. Some even lovers. I thought you were the right person for the job. Adam said. A feeling of sort. A feeling. Lady Yu touched her chin thoughtfully. Don't think too much about it. Adam headed to the door. If you don't want to, just say so. I won't take it personally. I'll give my answer when you return. Lady Yu said. Adam nodded and then left the attic. At that moment, Lady Yu's knees buckled under her, and she plopped down on her buttocks. That sounded like a confession, didn't it? Lady Yu touched her heated cheeks. The holy room ceremony has another name. Marriage ceremony. After all, the holy maiden and warrior are bound together in the ceremony. It turned night, and the stars began to twinkle in the sky above. While a small portion of the city went to sleep, the rest of the city stayed awake as the nighttime activities began. The taverns opened their doors, the sound of music and laughter filled the streets, and the city came alive with energy. By his in-room's balcony, Adam watched the lively scene below with a drink in his hand. It all seemed so peaceful, but it wasn't going to last. He remembered the time when the war started previously. It was his first year in the new world, and it all started during a day as peaceful as this. It frightened him greatly, as he thought he would just die in the war. It was nothing like life back in the real world. He thought about skipping the war completely and continuing playing once the war was over. However, the real world seemed so dull and lifeless. He was living alone at that point, disconnected from everyone, and there wasn't anything to do. He was still working at a nearby convenience store with a shitty pay, but he found solace in the virtual world of his video games. That's why he gave the war a go. It was painful at first. It was painful 6 months after the war started. However, eventually, he molded into a battle-hardened warrior. He shed off his fear of battle, accepted his fate, and embraced the adrenaline rush of combat. He stopped caring about life and death. He jumped straight to the jaws of death, and it was at that war that he started to make a name for himself. Since he was only order giver ranked at the time of the war, he was part of the first wave of the soldiers alongside originals. It was so bloody. However, as he got stronger mercenaries on his side as well. That's how he met Nicholas. He was in the Dying Star faction. They fought on the same side, straight on the front lines, and survived while keeping each other's backs covered. Nicholas had already become mercenaries. He was somewhere in the new world. He would also most likely participate in the war. Dying Star faction. In this war, they would be opponents, and if Adam saw him on the battlefield, he swore to kill him. I still hope I don't meet Saphira on the battlefield. Adam sighed and finished the drink. Till that talk with Zephyr, he thought he would be part of the Dying Star faction in this life as well. He had an amazing time there and was loyal to them. He kind of wanted Orion to approach him with an offer, so it looked natural for him to join their faction. However, he never did, and it didn't surprise him. Orion wasn't the type of person to look for alliances. He went with the flow, and that's why his guild members loved him like a father. Let the war begin. Adam put the drink down. At that moment, he heard some screams coming behind the door. It followed with some thumping noises and thudding like someone was slamming their head against a wall. Adam slowly made his way towards the door and opened the door enough to peek outside. He wasn't the only one who thought about what was happening, as his neighbors were also peeking out of their doors, looking concerned. It seemed like the sounds were coming from downstairs. Adam closed his door, and headed downstairs. When he reached the bottom of the stairs, he saw the source of the noise. 2 men were strangling each other with their hands. The innkeeper tried to remove them from each other, and other visitors had already gone outside, away from harm's way. Smile back, trash! Kamizi screamed as he squeezed on the man's throat. Arg! Issa gripped Kamizi's arm in an attempt to break free. Nightshades. A fight between Smileback and Nightshade. Adam's eyes turned cold. It's already at that stage, hey! Issa front-kicked Kamizi in the chest, enough to force him a few steps back, and he then drew his steel sword from the scabbard. A quick slash went between Kamizi's ribs, drawing a line of blood. Kamizi didn't look in pain and just clad his fist with his red craft before throwing a series of punches that sent Issa reeling backwards. Issa tried to use his sword to block some of the punches, but it was like trying to block sledgehammers. Kamizi's blows were too powerful and precise. The shockwave radiating off the punches sent the innkeeper flying like a kite to the end of the room. It was extremely dangerous for originals to stay around when players were fighting. Issa clicked his tongue, dashed past Kamizi, and made a few cuts on his arm. His swordsmanship wasn't flashy with wide and quick swings, but instead very small movements that created small wounds but would accumulate quickly. When he turned back to Kamizi, about to slash again, someone suddenly grabbed him by the elbow and twisted his arm behind his back. Arg! Issa turned around, and to his surprise there were around 8 or 9 black-cloaked figures standing by him. Senior brother. Kamizi grinned. N/O/vel/b/in.c//om. You're bullying a fellow brother of mine? TCH, TCH. Toro shook his head, grabbed Issa's sword forcibly, and cut through his throat. Issa fell on the ground and choked on his blood. Toro looked at the dead Smileback, smiled, and then took Kamizi with them as they left the inn to party somewhere else. Adam, standing by the stairs, returned back to his room. When he reached his room, he closed the door and locked it tightly. Adam leaned his head against the door. If something like that happened on Peace Day, Toro and his friends would be executed to avoid an all-out war between two ancient guilds that would create a big rift in the world. However, now it didn't matter. The war would happen one way or another. Chapter 227, Brothers and Sisters. I bless you. A white-robed priest wet his finger and drew a cross on the foreheads of the people present. They were sitting on pillows in the middle of the temple, their round eyes open, and black robes draped over them. They all looked strangely the same: cross earrings, black hair, faces pale as snow, and round, soft-looking features. The priest gave them his blessings. After that, they rose to their feet and headed out. They were smiling, some grinning, and others tight-lipped. The first brother and the first sister walked side by side, leading the way. The brother walked with a confident stride while the sister was just smiling and hopping along with excitement. When they left the church that was in the middle of a strange forest, the robed sisters and brothers stopped in the clearing. There was a thick forest surrounding them with tall trees and dense bushes, making it impossible to see further. Behind the bush, dagger-wielding men and women were waiting to ambush them. They wore masks, and clothes that blended with shadows. "Come out," the first sister called out to them with a laugh. "You think you've been able to hide from us? Come out, I'd like to talk to you all. Lower your weapons or die." The first brother shouted. "Mao, what are you doing?" The first sister looked at him with a pout. "You're scaring them away. Brute, stupid, blockhead." The first brother's eyebrow twitched. "Stupid." The second brother nodded in agreement. "Indeed, indeed." The seventh sister nodded with a smile, her bob cut bouncing with each movement. A dagger flew from the bush, but the fourth brother caught it and looked at it with a frown. Strangely enough, the dagger was ticking like a bomb. Oh! Boom! The dagger exploded. The force of the explosion threw the fourth brother back. He crashed through the church doors and slid down the floor till his body came to a stop. A smoke of the explosion engulfed his face like a misty mask. "Are you all right there?" the white-robed priest asked. "Yes, I am not much of a smoker, but I won't reject a freebie." The fourth brother leaped back to his feet with a grin on his face. The smoke dissipated, and his face looked intact. There wasn't a single cut or bruise to be seen. It was like he was only hit by a harmless smoke bomb. He walked out of the church and into the sunlight. "Hey, you rude bastards! What was that for?" The first brother took a step forward, drew his katana-like sword from the scabbard, and slashed it through the air. It created a slash made out of the air that cut through the trees in the distance. Those who were hiding jumped out of harm's way and finally revealed themselves from the bushes. It was unclear what guild they were part of. It also didn't look like they wanted to talk. Instead, they unleashed a flurry of spells, while a few of them did a straight frontal attack. Ha! The first brother grinned out of excitement, and with several quick slashes, he cut through the spells. A dagger-wielding man appeared from his shadow. The dagger already heading towards the first brother's neck. Your breathing is too loud. The first brother stabbed his katana through the man's throat. If you want to succeed in assassinating, you'll have to be much quieter. The first sister kneeled on the ground. She was smiling and singing a song inside her mind. 3 people attacked her seemingly defenseless self. Who wanders too close to me? The first sister opened her beautiful eyes. Will die. The skin of the 3 people peeled off like paint, and they started screaming like they were on fire. The first sister revealed a hidden knife from her sleeve and quieted them with a swift and precise cut to their throats. N/O/vel/b/n.c//om. She then hid the knife back to her sleeve. It was a massacre. The brothers and sisters slaughtered their enemies without mercy, laughing and smiling. While doing so, the ambush was a horrible failure. The sun hadn't moved in the sky, yet the fight was already over. The first brother sat on top of the last remaining member of the ambush party. He was removing the blood of his victim from his sword with a cloth. Hey! The first sister crouched in front of the half-dead man and smiled sweetly. Who are you with? I'd like to give them my gratitude for such a warm welcome. We're darkness. We're the shadows, we're death. The first sister giggled and said to everyone. We defeated death. I had chills. The third brother rubbed his arms. That guy is a proper weeb. Who can say that with a straight face? I know that mantra of theirs. The first brother said. Shadow League. Oh, I've heard of them. The first sister said with a giggle. They're like a secret society for gamers or something, right? You should fear us. The half-dead man shouted. We're otherworld killers, you know? When we find where all of you live, we'll kill all of you. None of them seemed worried and instead just laughed straight at his face. Oh, I don't mind giving our address. The first sister said. We're living together, after all. Together. Red Thread's orphanage, that's where we are. The first sister said with a grin. All of our parents were criminals. Horrible, horrible people. When they died, we were sent to Red Thread's orphanage. We were supposed to become slaves to the powerful. The person in charge of the orphanage was a horrible bitch. However, then Palestar, our beloved master, bought the orphanage and gave us a future. He gave all of us VR pods to come here and start a new life in the digital world. The first sister smiled hugely. We became part of the children of the fair. We're Palestar's sword and shield. Come and kill us. The first brother said. I dare you. I'll kill all of you to protect my brothers and sisters. Oh, you're such a sweetie. The first sister smiled at him and then took her knife before finishing off the half-dead man. We're waiting. Don't make us wait for too long. Hey, you guys see this? The 10th brother shouted. When others looked over to him, they saw the thing he was seeing. It looked like there was fire spreading deep in the forest. A forest fire? Here. The second sister said worryingly. This is God's wood. An ordinary fire doesn't burn here. It looks like the king has made his move. The 5th brother shouted out. They're going to burn the God's wood till there's nothing left. No. The first sister pouted. We're supposed to take control of God's wood for our master. This place is useless now. The first brother shouted. Let's leave. Our master has no need. For burned land. Where are we going? The third brother asked. To Imperium City. The first brother said. Every faction is going there. That's where the first fight will happen. Our master needs us there. War. The first sister trembled in her boots. The time's finally here. We'll make Palestar a king. Let's go, brothers and sisters. The first brother headed away. We have a realm to conquer. Chapter 228, What was that? The blood dripped down a mountain. It was a strange mountain of dangled arms, twisted legs and crushed skulls. It was actually a mountain of corpses. It was a haunting sight to behold. It was located in the center of an innocent-looking village. It was an empty and dead village now. The houses still looked intact, the streets clean, and the air pure, but all the villagers were dead, piled high in the center of the village. On top of the corpse mountain, a person was sitting cross-legged, his legs long and thin, his skin pale, and his eyes closed with a small smile on his face. Hamakuji hummed a song. You lied to me. There was someone kneeling below the mountain. A tear-ridden old man was staring up at the person on top of the mountain, his heart heavy with regret and sorrow. If he had only spoken the truth. If he had just betrayed their ruler. If only he wasn't as loyal as he was, his family and the people he was supposed to protect would still be alive. I am sorry. The old man tearfully shouted. What else do you want from me? You killed everyone. I want your wholehearted apology, Akuji said. Say it with passion. I want to see that you truly regret your actions. I do, I already do. The old man shouted. I am very, very, very sorry. I can't tell if you really mean it. Akuji clicked his tongue. This lunatic. Can't he see that I am heartbroken? Can't he see that I lost everything? Does he even have emotions? Akuji slid down the corpse mountain and slowly walked to the sorrowful old man. The old man looked down at the soil that was wet with blood. Say it again. Akuji prayed with his hands. With passion. With anger. With hatred. With regret. With sorrow. Anything. I am sorry. The old man screamed. I was stupid. I was foolish. I was ignorant. I regret everything. What are you sorry about? I lied about the fact we are loyal to the king. The old man said. I lied about joining Nightshade faction for the war. I didn't think far. I am sorry. Akuji's lips crunched together in a thin line. I don't know. You said that you're sorry, but you were looking at me when you said that. Shouldn't you be sorry at the dead for not protecting them? The old man's eyes widened. A trap. Akuji cut his head off with his bare hands, and the blood sprayed everywhere, painting the walls in a grotesque display of violence. Yawn. Akuji let out a very loud yawn and walked past the headless corpse. Well, this village is now ours. It's such a remote place that it wouldn't probably be even used for the war, but oh well. Thump. On top of a nearby building with a pitched roof, someone emerged from a black smoke cloud. It was a person with devilish eyes, a forked tongue, and long fingers with black nails. Akuji, trouble has arisen. What is it now? Akuji asked. Your little Shadow League has encountered some trouble. TCH. Snakeman clicked his tongue in annoyance. A small group of basement dwellers. None of my main guys. However, they got eradicated in the God's Wood. Oh, by who? Akuji asked with a raised eyebrow, already suspecting the answer. Children of the Fair, Snakeman said. The brothers and the sisters have made their move. Of course they would, God's Wood is a strong place to hold. Akuji said. I doubt they'll be able to get control of God's Wood in just a day. Ambrose wants me to go there to assist. God's Wood has been abandoned. Snakeman said. Burned, turned to ash. Oh, interesting move. Akuji said. Godswood has those god beasts that make venturing there dangerous. What happened to them? Slayed, like every other chaos being there. Snakeman said. Mikhail of the Imperial Order took care of them. Woo. Akuji grinned. That's one dangerous guy. What now? It looks like the brothers and the sisters are heading over to the Imperium City. Snakeman said. Like everyone else is. The first battle will happen there. Rumble, n/o/vel/b//in.c//om. The sky rumbled with thunder as dark clouds gathered overhead. It's about to rain. Akuji frowned. That's spring for ye. He took an umbrella from his inventory, opened it up, and covered himself under it. It didn't take even a second for rains to start pattering down. With water rushing down, the blood on the streets was quickly washed away. What are you planning to do now? Snakeman asked as he jumped from roof to roof, following Akuji, who was clearly heading out of the village. Imperium City, where else? Akuji asked with a laugh. That's where the party will happen. You're the third hand of Ambrose, he would appreciate your presence. Snakeman said. What's with the glazing? Akuji asked. What do you want? Speak your mind out. If you find any of the sisters and brothers, alone perhaps, kill one of them for me, will you? I don't work for you. Why would I do that? Akuji asked. I'll give you Blackheart's Blackheart in return. Snakeman said with a slight grin. He knew it was a very attractive object. And I wonder how you got hand to one of them. Akuji chuckled. Fine. Does it matter if it is only 10th brother or sister? I don't think I can kill the first brother and sister, they're always together like two peas in a pod. That's fine. Any of them is fine. Snakeman said. All right, I'll do my best. In that, an enormous slithering shadow made the surroundings dark, like someone had turned off the lights. When they looked to the sky, they saw something incredibly large and heavenly slithering above the dark clouds. It seemingly came out of nowhere. What the hell is that? The dark clouds under the enormous shadow's mouth disappeared as a pillar of hellish fire. And smoke shot out, consuming the entire village in flames. Arg! Akuji fell through the ground as the flames crashed down on him. Snakeman vanished into his shadows. The flames swept across the land and made the nearby farm fields turn to ash. The shadow above the dark clouds left quickly. It slithered across the sky and had already disappeared beyond the horizon, with the dark clouds following it. The sky turned clean, the rain stopped, and the sun returned. Through the burned, ash-filled ground, Akuji punched through with a rageful shout that echoed through the burned wasteland. What the hell was that? Snakeman appeared close to him. His face was cold with sweat, and he looked as frightened as Akuji. What the heavenly fuck was that? Akuji asked. Snakeman, did you see what it was? No. Snakeman shook his head. I can usually see through the shadows, but that thing. I couldn't see it as if I was not allowed to do so. Not allowed? Akuji frowned. A being that can change the laws of the world. God? Snakeman asked in shock. I don't know. Akuji narrowed his eyes. Usually gods are only able to change the laws of the world. If you couldn't see it even with your shadow powers, it means the being changed a law of sight around it. Thus, no one could see it unless it wanted to be seen. That's ridiculous. Snakeman cried out. What way did it go? Akuji asked, as he couldn't see it because he was buried in the ground. To the west. Snakeman said heavily. In the direction of the Imperium City. What the hell is going on? Akuji clicked his tongue. Will there even be Imperium City left after all this? What's happening there that even attracts beings as godly as that? Chapter 229, Death party of Smilebacks. What the hell is going on? Johnny shouted as he stood in the middle of a village, surrounded by strange chaos. The windows of all the houses had a smile painted on them, and a group of clowns were dancing wildly in the streets. The mercenaries were trying to kill those clowns, but when they tried doing so, the clowns fought back. They turned into killer clowns and slaughtered the mercenaries with their laughter sounding like death. Those clowns and smiles appeared out of nowhere. It was just a calm, sunny day, but now it felt like a nightmare came to life. "Hello, little Johnny," the clown came over to him. "Would you like to see a magic trick?" How do you know my name?" Johnny asked fearfully and backed off into one of the open houses. "Hajajajaja." The clown laughed. "It's your birthday party, is it not?" "See." Johnny looked over to the village. There was a large banner hung between two buildings that read, "Happy Death Day, Johnny." Johnny stormed inside the house, skipped the stairs to the second floor, and hid himself in one of the rooms. He heard the clown's squeaky shoes coming up the stairs. "This." Johnny took a cold breath. "I know what this is. It's a death party of Smilebacks." Ding, 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 the clown's voice came behind the door. "Let the party begin." Knock, knock, knock. The clown knocked on the door. The first knock was normal, the second knock was quieter, but the third knock was loud and forceful. "Let me inside, little Johnny. Leave me alone, please." Johnny sat on the ground while trying to keep the door closed. "I'll join Smilebacks." "Yeah, I'll let you have this place." "You will?" the clown whispered. "Are you lying, perhaps?" "And no, I will. You should have said so from the beginning." The clown laughed. "Hajajaja." With laughter, the clown disappeared, and all the smiles on the windows vanished. The village was left in complete silence, wondering what had just happened. Knock, knock, knock. Again, someone knocked on the door. Johnny flinched. "Come out, little Johnny, I'd like a word with you." The voice was deep like a sea. "Who is it?" Johnny asked. "Name's Jesse," he said. "I am with the death party." "What do you want?" Johnny asked. "Were those clowns with you?" "I'll enter," Jesse said, and then without any effort, he pushed the door open and made Johnny fall aside. Johnny picked up the first thing he found from the floor. It was a shoe. He was holding it like a sword. Jesse sat down on the windowsill, and opened the window to allow a greater space for him to sit on. The streets of the village still looked hectic. The mercenaries of the guild that was in control of the village were healing their wounds. No one actually died from the last attack, thanks to the healers that were present. "I saw the banner at the entrance. Your guild is called the Lion Twisters, is that correct?" "Why yet?" Johnny said. "You're from Smilebacks." "I am, and I am here to take this village under our control," Jesse said. "Where did those clowns go to?" Johnny asked. "They were everywhere, and then they were nowhere. Those are friends of mine. They're part of the death party alongside me. We would have killed all of you, but you sounded like you wanted to stay alive. So, you want to change factions?" "Why yeah, as long as I don't have to meet those clowns ever again," Johnny said. "We're originally part of the Dark Star faction, but we're really not that loyal. It's the only faction that sought us." "Yeah, sounds about right," Jesse said. "Your guild is weak, but it does have numbers. Quantity over quality, no doubt." Those words hurt Johnny deep like daggers, but he couldn't argue against that. They took control of some abandoned village that had been ravaged by a natural disaster, so they built the village from the ground up and made it their base. They allowed everyone to join their community, as long as they were willing to work hard and contribute. That made the overall strength of the guild weak. "No wonder Darkstar sought you out," Jesse said. They're factions with the greatest numbers. It's because they've similar mindsets as you, quantity over quality. We're more than happy to join ships. Johnny said. As long as we're not abandoned in the war. My boss will use this route to gather supplies and reinforcements. He'll probably build an outpost in this very village, so all of you will be safe. That's good to hear. Johnny breathed a sigh of relief. Hung this next to your banner. Jesse handed him a flag. It was a flag of a smile on a black background. With that, it's obvious who your loyalty lies on. Jesse said and looked down to the street. If you betray us, you know that the death party will come after you. Those clowns. Johnny gulped. Especially those clowns. Now, farewell. Jesse jumped out the window. Johnny rushed over to the window and saw Jesse land on his 2 feet in the ground before walking away. Jesse walked to the hillside forest that overlooked the village in the distance. When he arrived there, he looked around for a moment, but then 4 other figures emerged from the trees to join him. It's done? Emmett asked. Yes, a stronghold has been set up, Jesse said. N/O/vel/b//in.c//om. Good, it'll help. Lara said. What now? Alec asked. To the Imperium City. Zara questioned with a furrow on her brows. Yes, Jesse said. Bartholomew needs his death party. Lara took a seat by a big boulder and giggled with her legs crossed. Were they frightened? It looks like the little Johnny was quite afraid of clowns. Jesse said with a chuckle and crossed his arms. Alec grinned and then spun around while a clown's outfit appeared on him in a puff of smoke. As he did the clownly dance, the squeaky shoes squeaked on the ground. Little Johnny, Alec's voice completely changed to mimic that of a clown. The death party was infamous in the New World. They were the strongest group that Smileback had on their side, their ultimate weapon. It was because wherever the death party went, victory followed. It was what made Smilebacks a formidable force in the first place. A carriage was waiting for them at the edge of the forest. As they hopped inside, Jesse stood on its side, holding onto the railing, and looked around. He then created a driver out of a puff of smoke. The driver wore a top hat and looked very distinguished. The ugly, brownish carriage also changed into a beautiful, shimmering gold color. It looked like a carriage used by royalty. That wasn't all. Wings grew from the sides of the carriage and the horses. With a pull on the reins, the driver urged the horses to take flight into the sky. With a couple of gallops, the horses took flight, and the carriage followed, flying through the air without any worry in the world. However, before they could reach the skies, dark clouds appeared out of nowhere. It's about to rain. Right now. Jesse clicked his tongue. It was sunny just moments ago. However, then the sky started to rumble with thunder and the carriage started shaking like it was caught in an earthquake. At that moment, an enormous shadow flew over them. It was so big that it looked like it turned night for a second. Jesse's eyes widened in shock, but for some odd reason, he couldn't see what the creature was. Inside the carriage, others also looked outside with an equally stunned expression. What the hell is that? Chapter 230, A Force of Nature. The stars sparkled in the sky. Within the flower-decorated balcony, a seemingly close couple gazed up at the twinkling lights. The woman was pretty. She had braided hair that cascaded down her back in a beautiful, intricate design and had some red roses tucked behind her ear. She wore a floral dress with a waist cinched by a thin belt, and her eyes sparkled with joy as she pointed out constellations in the sky. Those are not the same as back in our world, right? Desire said with a smile. Dominique smiled and said, That's right. The stars are different here, but just as beautiful. He was soft-spoken and had a way with his words. He looked decently handsome and had a calming presence around him. He seemed like a person that could charm a person by just standing still and saying nothing at all. Desire looked fascinated, and when she smiled, her cheeks swelled with a rosy hue. They looked like a couple that was madly in love and was having a date in their own little world. However, in that moment, the building on the other side of the street started to turn loud. Some of the windows shattered as the people inside fought. "What's going on?" Dominique cried out. N/O/vel/b//in.c//om. Desire. A heavily armored woman ran to the balcony and broke the romantic atmosphere. "We have to go, now." "Who the hell are you?" Dominique flinched and asked. "Already? Okay." Desire said, and then armor with small metallic wings on the back hugged her body tightly. She instantly changed from a sweet young woman to a fierce warrior. "What? Why are you looking like this?" Dominique asked with an ugly frown. "This is not womanly at all." "Well, why see Dominique, it was fun for about 30 minutes or so, but I gotta go," Desire said with a sweet smile and followed after her friend. However, she turned around for one more time and said, "By the way, I break up with you. I've got to go too. Bye-bye." "What?" Dominique frowned. "I thought we were happy together." Desire. Desire just laughed and waved, then left with her friend. They left the romantic restaurant behind and crossed the street to enter the building that had a fight going on. It was a mess there. Through a solid wall, a black-haired man crashed through and landed on the ground with a loud thud. There was a sword wound on his chest that stretched from his shoulder to his waist. A metal-armored woman stepped through the wall. She also wore a helmet with small metallic wings on each side. As she raised her sword, she finished off the man on the ground. The ceiling then broke apart, and two people were exchanging punches. A bloody-faced man and armored young woman were locked in a fierce battle, neither giving an inch. As they crashed on the ground, the armored young woman mounted over him, sword poised to strike the final blow. The man looked frightened, and the steel blade pierced through his heart. "Desire, you're late!" Florence shouted. "You've pretty much missed the entire fight. It's already over." Desire scratched the back of her head and muttered, "I am sorry." She was having a date. Her friend rolled her eyes. "Who was it this time?" Florence asked as she cleaned the blood off her blade. While doing that, a fight was happening in the nearby room. It soon ended as the guild that was in control of this building only a minute ago was completely annihilated. Dominique Desire's friends said. "Ugh, him." Florence cringed. "Desire, I love you and all that, but your taste in men is terrible." "I guess I am attracted to weak men," Desire said with a wink. In that moment, they heard steps coming from outside. They turned around and turned silent like a deer caught in headlights. Athena slowly entered the place, dragging a spiky mace behind her. It looked heavy and dangerous. With a single swing, it could most likely shatter the entire human body. "It's done?" she asked. "Yes, my lady," Florence replied respectfully. "I see." Athena found the last remaining chair that wasn't broken and sat down with a loud sigh. She also had fought somewhere. The blood on her mace was still fresh. This night was long. They went on a killing rampage and eliminated a guild that had been harassing her guild members. It wasn't the first time, as it was only a female guild. However, like always, whoever bothered with her ladies did so at their own peril. "Desire, I smell a foreign scent on you." Athena looked at her with a soft look. "You should stop playing with their hearts. It might not end well for you next time around." "I'll be careful." Desire hugged Athena's arm like a daughter trying to please her mother. "I'll stop doing it." Sigh. Athena shook her head and let out a quick giggle. She knew that Desire was lying, but she couldn't get angry at her. She was like a little sister of their entire guild, after all, and she was the heart of their team. "Burn this place down," Athena said and stood up. Then returned to HQ. It's not wise to be out in these troubled times. Florence nodded, and she already had ways of making a fire. She created a makeshift torch and set fire to the walls. It quickly spread as if the walls were made of dry tinder. When they all left, the building was already burning so much that it was beyond saving. In the basement of the Battle Maidens HQ, the steam made the place very foggy. The steam came from a hot spring that ran directly under the building. They happened to build their headquarters right on top of that and were able to create their very own hot spring. However, unlike the Kuro Island's hot spring, it didn't have any healing or improving properties. In the hot spring, the ladies of the Battle Maidens bathed with their naked bodies hidden by the warm steam rising from the water. Currently, on the roof of the building, Athena sat right on the edge, her legs almost dangling over the edge. It looked like with a single gust of wind, she would fall. She had taken off her armor and was just on a t-shirt and jeans, with her hair still wet from the hot spring. Something horrible has happened. Athena opened her round eyes. She could feel that something was wrong. It was like an angry force was heading in their way. Someone angry. Someone furious. Someone who is wanting revenge is coming. Athena hadn't felt like this possibly ever. At first, when she had this feeling earlier today, she thought it was just slight jitters before the war. However, now she realized it was something far more threatening. A force of nature. It's coming. What'll happen? She shuddered at the thought. Within the mountainside, a shadowy creature wrapped its body around the mountain like a serpent coiling around its prey. It was sleeping. Its breathing was slow and steady, yet powerful. It was so big and large that all and every land animal just escaped from the mountainside because its sheer size made it so that the mountainside only had place for its large body. SHHH. SHH. SH.